Welcome to Motivate Me, Maine's first and only motivational podcast. This podcast is all about helping motivate people, anyone inspiring to start a business, any entrepreneurs, anyone that is trying to get something off the ground and get going. And we are on episode 4. We have a special guest today, a girl that is a multitasker, entrepreneur, a little bit of everything. Hallie Mitchell.
Hello.
Hallie, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Thank
reached
you for
out.
having me.
Yeah, you reached out early on to come onto the show.
Yeah.
And I noticed it right away and checked out your page and was like, yeah, I gotta have this girl on. Mm-hmm. She does a little bit of everything. So we're gonna get right into it. Your name, introduction, your profession. What are you all about?
Yeah. So my name's Hallie Mitchell. I am one of the founders of the Maine Women's Cannabis Connection. I run my own freelance design company, Vivid Studio Gallery, as well as I'm the art director on the Maine Cannabis Chronicle. I've been doing graphic design for like 10 years, I think, at this point, primarily in the cannabis industry. I've done work with like over 150 clients in that space. I guess I also do illustrations and murals.
Okay. We have some of Hallie's work on here, some of your designs, some of the packaging, which is really cool. I was checking it out before we got going, and this is really cool. And I've actually seen some of it. Now that I look at it, it looks familiar. I've seen some of the stuff out and about, and I'm sure it's a growing industry too. I'm sure you're pretty busy.
I'm very busy, and I have a lot of consistent clients that I've had for years. Like Firefly, I did his logo back like 7 years ago, something like that.
Yep.
And this was the first packaging that we came up with, which is funny because I got this recently. And then the new rebrand that we did like a couple months ago.
Yeah, very cool. So graphic design, you do a lot of graphic design, a lot of murals. Saw some pretty cool murals that you do. I want to say Hannaford, you did a pretty big
Oakhurst.
one. Oakhurst, okay.
So I didn't paint that one, but I illustrated it.
That's cool.
So they had someone hired to paint it, and he didn't know how to like draw it in that scale. So I took on the project to draw the illustration that he then painted. Yeah, I would say the feedback they gave me when working that I thought was really funny was more cows.
Yeah. Oakhurst.
Oakhurst.
Yeah, they want more cows.
More cows.
So do you design stuff on a computer? Is it like sketching on the computer, or is it?
It really depends on the project. And like when I'm doing Broadway work, actually, I would say me and my mentor that I do that work with are actually off the computer a lot. Like we'll use like charcoal or like ink, depending on the project and like what we're trying to accomplish with it. I think in today's world, it's a lot easier to work on an iPad for illustration. It's just a lot quicker. With how busy I am, I tend to do that route just because you really can do so much on that, and it's all vector. So it can scale to any size, which is great.
Yeah, that's cool. So your history, how did this all start? I mean, did you go to school for graphic design? How long ago, and when did this start?
So, actually, this kind of started in high school. So sophomore year of high school, I got into AP art classes, and I started taking classes every weekend at the Maine College of Art. And then I actually took a pre-college program at Mecca, and then a pre-college program in San Francisco at the Academy of Art University for 4 months. Graduated early, just knew I wanted to be an artist at that point in my life. I really wanted to be like this prestigious young painter. But then just like I was also working 30 hours a week through high school. Like I've always kept a job while in school, whether it was college or high school. Got my first job a day after I got my license. And I just had to take some time off after like graduating early and going straight into that, because by the end of the semester, they have you try like every different medium. And I was like, I kind of like all of them.
Right.
What am I going to do? I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So I was like all excited to go to art school, got there, and then was like overwhelmed with all the options. So I took like 2 years off just to like work and get my own place to live at, and like kind of get like the being on my own for the first time, like out of my system. And then I kind of got a little bit more settled, and I was working at Brian Baru at the time. And I went to this cannabis convention in Rhode Island, and I met this guy who was like, "Hey, can you make me a vector illustration for a comic book that I want my company to release?" He was like this China quartz guy that was kind of like all around, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, like of course I can do it." No idea what vector is.
Right.
So I come back to Maine, and actually I asked one of the regulars who was there all the time, Ken Murphy, who is actually still a pretty prevalent designer here in Maine. He's done a lot of work here. And he was like, "Hey, that's what I do for work." He's like, "When you go back to school, you should study illustration and graphic design and see what one you like, because like I know you like to draw." So he kind of like pushed me in that direction. And then when I re-enrolled into school, I was like, got into both of the classes and just had a knack for graphic design.
Yeah. When did
And
you start your, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. When did you start Vivid? When did you start when were you like, all right, I'm going to make this a business, or I'm going to make my own studio?
So that was really like I did freelance work since I decided I wanted to be in graphic design. But me starting Vivid was actually during COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. You're like the third person we've interviewed that said they started their business during COVID.
Yeah.
So, and you've got your own studio space that you work out of. And
I actually work remote. I did have a studio space, but just for what I'm doing, it just makes more sense to work remote.
yeah,
Because you save on the expenses. I mean, I have my employee come over and work with me a couple days a week, but for the most part, it's remote. And also, what's nice about that is I can go do stuff and still have her working and then review her throughout the day.
yeah,
Which is really great. And I'm working on getting a second person hired as well to kind of help with the art director side of it and kind of help with my role, just because I'm doing so much client relations right now. I think it'd be really great to have someone kind of oversee my designer as well as take on some of the bigger projects.
yeah. No, it's really cool. And you're really involved in the marijuana cannabis industry. I mean, what is marijuana to you and cannabis? I mean, what?
It's a community, honestly. I would say, like, I've worked on all sides of it. With my ex-boyfriend that I was with for 8 years, he had a small cannabis company. So I was on like the farming side of it, like how to grow in my house, like harvested every 3 months, like went through the ringer for any problems you could have. Like really, it was part of my lifestyle. Trimmed through college while working another job,
That's
just to make
cool.
extra money on the side. So it's like it's been a huge part of my life in that aspect, and I think that's why I relate to so many of the companies as well, because the owners like understand that side of it and I can talk that lingo. And like when I go to events or when I'm throwing the events for Maine Women's Cannabis Connection, it's just so easy to have conversations with people in this community, and it's such a welcoming community, and I've met so many awesome people that are just hustlers. Like a farmer's lifestyle is not a typical lifestyle.
No, not at all. And you've done it, so you know how to package. You know what things look like. You know what the plant looks like, so you can draw and do murals and illustrate it and connect with people for their brand.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Definitely.
So, what is the Maine Women's Cannabis Connection? I mean, what exactly is that? And you started it?
So me and Hallie started it, and then we brought in Heather, who was one of my biggest clients at the time and one of my friends. She runs a delivery service out of Wyndham. We had Chelsea's helped us start it in the beginning, Chelsea MacDaddy. She's really great. She does
Yeah, I've heard of her before.
Work for a lot of people, so she helped in event planning. That's really what her knack is. So she helped us in the beginning. We kind of made our creative part there, but we were still like close with her. It's just a lot, like running a nonprofit where none of you are making money, and
I was wondering if it was nonprofit or not, or
yeah, it's a nonprofit, so we all like donate our time to it. None of us make a dollar on it. We use the money either for throwing the events that bring people together, or we actually donate a lot of it back to the community. Like we'll write checks to like Wayside and just different like nonprofits that we can give back to.
So it's all about women and the women in the cannabis industry and spotlighting the women.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily all about women. I would say it's about like uplifting women and bringing people together and just like showcasing the women in this industry that are working so hard just because it's such a male dominated industry. It's really showing like who's behind the scenes doing this work. And like I've just met so many like amazing hustlers, or like there's so many different companies that you wouldn't even know a woman is running.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to like spotlight those people, mostly like with the farmer lifestyle. And like running a cannabis business is not easy. Like the regulations are constantly changing. There's so many more taxes involved, permits, like the towns can change their mind in any moment. The state can change its mind. So it's like a very up and down industry where I think it's nice to just bring people together that can learn from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And spotlight them, like you said. I mean, a lot of times you'll see a dispensary, you'll see a grow, you'll see a company, and you don't know who's running it. You don't know who's, owns it or who's behind it. So to be able to highlight that and show the women, and I agree with you, it's definitely a male dominant industry, but it's slowly changing. It's definitely getting better.
And I almost wonder if it is male dominated or if the women just haven't been shown as much
Yeah,
as the men in the industry.
that's a great point.
And honestly, like for myself, I was nervous about showing cannabis on my Instagram page for a long time. And then it felt like coming out of the weed closet, honestly.
Yes.
And I feel like there's probably other people that feel that same way too, because it was stigmatized for so long.
Yeah.
And like until I really knew that I was running my own business, like I was nervous. Like you don't want people online to see you smoking weed all the time and like posting weed all the time and think it's going to affect you getting hired somewhere. And I just feel like that should change too, because the beer industry does it and cannabis is a lot safer. A lot of people use it for medicine. It's like a lot more chill. Like the cannabis events that we go to and throw, like people are safe there and they're having fun and they're having like interesting, like relevant conversations. Like
Nobody's fighting or
no.
getting, out of hand but you made a good point about how a lot of women don't show about smoking weed or show about cannabis. And I've seen that myself online where it's like you don't see a lot of women doing it or showing it, which is kind of a stigma. It's kind of like something that should be changed, should be accepted more.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it till you actually brought it up.
I mean, also, like, Instagram in general is really hard for the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Because you can get your account taken down very easily. There's, like, everyone has their different ideas on how to not have your account get shut down or how to get your account back. The reality is Instagram's just, like, kind of a pain in the ass for the cannabis industry. Or anyone that smokes cannabis that's showing it. And it's also scary because like these companies spend so much money on marketing and social media management to one day have that just like gone.
Yeah.
And not be able to get it back. The one good thing about Maine though is it's such a small community here where if that happens, like I recently had a client that had their account taken down and we're rebuilding it. But like in the first 3 days, we've had like 200 or 300 followers just from being shared from people we know in the industry here. And then being like sharing it to their followers and having them recognize the account or people get interested. It's just like a nice community where I feel like in Maine, you kind of have that advantage at least.
Yeah. So what is the magazine all about? You're editor of the Chronicle?
I'm the art director, but I definitely do a little more than that too.
You're the art director.
Yeah.
So that's the artwork of the magazine?
So we do all the design work for it. I help with hiring the creatives. I really help with the calendar. We're taking over the social soon. I kind of help in all aspects of it at this point. It started out with us just designing the magazine, and then I kind of just like kept moving more towards like helping run it and bringing new people in, new writers in. I've actually hired a lot of female young writers that are super ambitious about it. But really, we're very community focused as well. We like to highlight different artists in the community. Like Abby that did my tattoo art is going to be the cover in the centerfold.
Oh, cool.
Of the next issue that's coming out. And then my friend Gunnar that I went to the Maine College of Art, he did the cover and the centerfold of the last issue.
Yeah.
And he has like a very cool style. So we like to feature like artists that are like drawing and like doing that side of art. Mark the curator co, who is one of my buddies from high school actually, but he's had a couple of High Times covers. He's actually doing the 420 edition cover for the one that's coming out after the next one too.
You do everything. Magazine, you do design work, the women's cannabis. I mean, do you sleep? Is there ever, I mean,
I try to unplug, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't used to. I think I've gotten to a point in my career where I can unplug. Like all through college, like I would stay up late every night and I like worked in the grow, I was trimming, I was like working a job, I was in like six classes. So I really put in the work young. Where I feel like now I can chill, but when I say that, I mean like I have the weekends.
Yeah. I can chill on the weekends.
Yeah, and I still end up working. I mean, like I have my client communications. I always have my list. I have like a notebook that really is like my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently, what are you currently working on? What would you say like you're doing a lot of right now?
Currently working on a lot of things currently.
A lot of packaging. Would you say this is your like?
Yes.
Currently, you're doing a lot of cannabis packaging.
And actually, we're promoting that more too. I have a packaging person that's really great, really quick turnaround times, not bad pricing. He's been sending me clients. Recently sent me one in Palm Springs, which was really interesting.
Oh, so that's cool.
Cannabis clients like from other places as well. But I definitely do a lot of cannabis packaging and cannabis branding right now.
I'm sure you're busy because it's kind of a booming market right now. I feel like in Maine and how fast it's growing, how many there are. Mm-hmm. They all want to be different. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got a different logo, a different name. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a pretty good business for you, a pretty good hustle.
It is. And like I try to like help people out too, like the smaller companies as well. I definitely work with a range of companies, both in the recreational and medical market. I try to stay like in the middle about everything, and really just want people to succeed. Like, and I'd like to help them in any way that I can and try to just make it work. Whatever their budget might be, as long as it's like within that threshold.
Yeah. When I first talked to you, we had like a quick call, or it was actually through text, and you were like, "Do you want to be in the magazine?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have the money. We're kind of on a budget." You're like, "No, I'll put you in for free." I'm like, "This girl, I get you now. Like you're all about helping people, putting us on, and now we got a little spot in the magazine." So
yeah.
I get it. I get where you're coming from.
And I also feel like if people give to you, like, I appreciate you bringing me on here. Like, I want to give back.
Yeah.
So,
it's a mutual thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of have like an edgy question. I don't know if you have the answer to it or not, but do you think that the industry is flooded? Do you think the marijuana industry has become too much? I mean, do you see it with your work? I
mean, yes. I mean, it's very, very clear that it's flooded. The prices are like half of what they used to be. I think it's going up a tiny bit, but really like it's definitely very flooded right now. For me, that hasn't really affected my work that much. I mean, some clients can't pay as much as they could, but everyone's still looking for marketing because now that the industry's flooded, they need to sell their products.
Right.
So it's either way, it's kind of hasn't affected my business that much, but it's definitely affected a lot of the people that I work with.
I've noticed it a little bit, and there's so many of them now that the competition is just kind of tough, and there's a lot of them, but in a way it probably helps you because there's so many of them, and there's so many. If there was only a few dispensaries in the state, you really wouldn't be doing a lot of packaging or whatnot, but
yeah, and really, I mean, some of the brands that I'm working with haven't had a brand really, or like have had a logo but haven't had packaging, and now they're like, time to ramp up the marketing, time to get that packaging going.
Yep.
Time to get like the actual brand developed versus just the logo, or time to update the logo. So I've seen a lot of that as well.
Got to stand out, got to separate themselves a little bit.
Exactly.
Yep. So motivation. What motivates Hallie? What gets you up in the morning and makes you go design stuff? You know, what motivates you to do the Women's Cannabis Connection, the magazine? Is it a person? Is it a page? Is it a family member? You know, what motivates you?
That's hard, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, is it marijuana? Does that motivate you? Is it?
I mean, I think it's honestly just like the strive to get better and do better and like create really fucking awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I really like to work with clients and create something different that no one's seen before and have that go out and like have it surround me. Like, it's really cool entering an environment and having worked with so many people around you or so many different companies that you're seeing your work like in your surroundings constantly. Like, I went to the farm to patient experience like 3 weeks ago, and I walked in there and I was like collecting money from a client, like taking on new projects, like saying hi to friends in the industry, promoting the magazine, like, and I'm like working, but I'm also just saying hi to like different people in the community that I'm already connected with.
It must be cool to see your work.
It is cool.
It must be cool to design something and then like see somebody else have a package or see your mural or see an illustration. You know, you drive by or somebody else has it. It must be cool to see your work. I mean, I'm sure that's motivating too.
It's very motivating. I feel like I don't take enough time to admire it after I do it. I wish it's something I'm working on.
Yeah.
Just because I'm moving so fast all of the time. Like, it was kind of funny, the Firefly booth. I completely forgot I designed it. And I was like, that looks good at the event. And I'm like, oh, wait, we designed that. Because we designed it so fast that I just, like, completely forgot for a moment. But, yeah. I would say the one thing about it I don't like is when things get messed up in production because I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah, it's not on you. It's on them or the production messed up.
I worked on this exhibition in New York at the Oculus with Drew Hodges, who is my mentor that I did a lot of the Broadway stuff with. And it was Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel up close. So this photographer went in and he took photographs of each panel of the Sistine Chapel, and then they blew them up so they were about the size of this wall here. So they were huge. And then there was a story of each piece of it written out. And I had control over like all of the marketing materials with Drew. We did the brand for the exhibition, which they went very modern, which was cool. We actually did the up close, and the and the close had
that's cool.
The like picture cut out in it. And we made this really neat book. I wish I brought that.
Yeah.
But it like the cover folds out to like the picture of the whole ceiling. And then each page has the written out descriptions with the art going with it. That was one of the coolest things I think I've ever designed. It's kind of random. But I went to it in person and I was so excited to see it. But we didn't have control over the panels themselves or do that part of the production. And some of them were stretched. And I was just like,
yeah, that must be frustrating.
And everyone in New York saw it. It was like this huge exhibition. Like, if you talk to people in New York, a lot of them like remember it. And it's just like those things just like bother me so much. And I think it's like a little bit of OCD, a little bit of perfectionist.
I could see that. You put all the work in, you designed it, and then it gets tweaked or it's not how you want it in the end. And people might think that that's your work or it's got your name on it, but I could see that.
It's not even that. It's just like, I want it to be perfect.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect. I mean, I don't think perfect really is a word. If you think about it, nothing's ever going to be perfect. But yeah, especially when you're an artist.
Yeah.
And I think you're an artist first before anything.
I definitely am.
Yeah.
And it was funny, like when I was getting into graphic design, like, I don't know if you can notice, but my strength is in color. And I think that comes from my painting background, where I just really like color and like the way that colors relate to each other. But I'm definitely an artist first and then graphic designer second.
How do you deal with perfectionism being an artist? You know, is there something that you just kind of have to get used to it or just communicate better with the people? Or,
I mean, it's hard because it makes me want to micromanage everything. every step of the process just because I don't want it to be printed wrong, because nothing irks me more than designing something beautiful and then just not having it be just right. And like, if it comes down to me donating time to like make it perfect if something was printed a little bit wrong, I'll do that just because I don't know, it just gets under my skin.
Yeah.
Spending so much time on something and then just having like, it could be something really small too. Like, for instance, like all of the spacing matters, like between all of these things.
Yeah. Yep.
Like if I saw like, oh, it wasn't spaced perfectly equal, like I might be like, oh, can I fix this and resend it to you? Just, it might be a little bit of OCD.
The small details. No, that's what makes you an artist, and that's what makes you successful. You're obviously successful. People are calling you, people are using you, you're producing. So I don't think if you weren't like that, you wouldn't be where you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if you were like that, you wouldn't be where you are. Being able to get the small details and perfect things to your standard. So I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think every artist should have some sort of OCD or perfectionism or...
And really that's probably why people hire us, because what we do looks good.
Yeah.
And it is like set up in that way, like where everything has its place kind of.
If you didn't care, then it wouldn't be quality. Or if that didn't bother you, then it wouldn't really be art. It'd just be you just kind of slapping stuff out. So I think it's a good thing.
Me too.
Challenges. What's the biggest challenge for you in your line of work? What's the biggest thing that is tough for you to deal with, or what's a hurdle for you? Is it the laws in the marijuana industry? Is it the people you deal with? Is it what's a challenge for you?
If you want me to be honest, it's when people don't like things, which never really happens, but I would say that's probably the hardest for me to take in.
Yeah.
It's probably happened like maybe 5% since I've been in design. Probably less, but when it happens, it's kind of crushing.
Yeah, I bet.
And it like hits your ego, which I feel like being an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have a little bit of an ego, because like you're running a company and you have to be the boss. You have to be that one in charge. Like it's a humble ego, but
right.
Still, like when that gets crushed, like that's definitely, I would say, the biggest challenge for me, which sounds kind of emotional.
No, I bet. So you'll design something, send it to a customer, and they'll just say, we don't like it. Or can we change it? Or
can we change it's good.
Okay.
Because usually can we change it turns into something even better that I didn't notice. And I actually, like, I don't mind collaborating with clients. I always put in like 2 to 3 rounds of revisions. And if it goes beyond that, like we just work at a price that works for both of us. Because it does usually elevate what I'm doing. I do believe like clients do have an eye and we can make it look to what they want it to be. It's more when like you've done all the work and they're all of a sudden like, no, I'm good, or I hired someone else and you didn't know about it. I would say that's probably the worst. And then you see it and it's like not as good as what you did, or at least that's what you think, and you're just like,
yeah, that's probably, I could see how that's a challenge for sure. Especially being an artist. That's your forte. What's your personal life like when you're not doing all this stuff, when you're not doing the magazine, when you're not designing the Women's Cannabis Connection? What are you doing on the weekends? What are you doing your time off?
I try to go snowboarding a lot. That's definitely like my sport of choice. I love being up in the mountains. I have a camp up in Colebrook where we go snowmobiling. I do a lot of hiking in the summer. I try to be outside as much as possible. I mean, I spend a lot of time with my dog. I also like just like chilling.
Yeah.
Like Sundays are kind of like my get organized, like relax. I like having a really like organized house too. So like there's days where I just like rearrange the things in my house.
I'm the same way. Like remove the couch and the table and like clean. It's probably clean by anyone else's standards, but I'll like double clean, wipe things down.
Go on Wayfair, order that shelf that you've been thinking about.
Yeah. You ride snowmobiles?
I'm usually on the back.
Okay, I was gonna say, you said snowmobile. I'm like, okay, she can ride a sled. That's pretty cool.
No, I should though. I mean, snowmobiles are pretty new to my life. My parents just got, or they've had a camp up there for a while, but usually my partner, like my boyfriend, drove last time. I definitely want to get behind the wheel because I feel like I'd really like it.
Yeah, yeah. They're fun either way.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful in Maine. You get to see everything, sightsee.
Honestly, I feel like on the back is almost harder than on the front sometimes.
Yeah.
Like last weekend we were up there and we were like, my dad's kind of a daredevil with stuff. Like he whitewater kayaked, plays hockey still, like really into the extreme sports, and he was driving ahead of us. So he is whipping it. And my boyfriend's like pretty new to sleds, and he was trying to keep up, and I'm on the back, like
holding
on for like dear life, like hoping I don't fall off this thing.
Yeah, snowmobiles can be fast. They can be bumpy, and when you're on the back, you really can't see sometimes. Mm-hmm. But that's cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool area up there too. There's like trails everywhere, and it gets a lot of snow.
Word of the episode. Word of the episode. Each episode is going to have a word pertaining to each guest. And for Hallie, I picked evolve. How important is it to evolve with this industry and keep up and know the lingo, know the terms? I feel like the marijuana industry is just evolving constantly with the styles, the strains, do you evolve with the market, and how's that pertain to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's two ways I can talk about evolve too. There's like in my own practice, I think there's a lot of evolution within like new programs coming out, new software being used, like bringing iPads into it. Like there's definitely that evolution, as well as like keeping up with trends, like constantly looking at references for new things that other people have come up with to like use as references for things you're working on. In terms of the cannabis industry, I mean, I definitely say that we evolve, but I try to stay pretty compliant. I try to like keep up with the different compliancy things that come in. I always tell my clients I'm not a lawyer, but this is like what I know based off other people I've worked with. But yeah, I mean, I haven't.
That's
had
a
to
good point
evolve
about
too much.
the technology and the iPad and the programs, and that stuff changes constantly. And being able to evolve with it, know how to use it, know how to work with it. And I was just thinking there's probably a lot that goes with the laws of what you can say, what you can print, contains THC, the children labels. You must have to keep up on the law. No food.
No animals on packaging. Like actually recreational packaging is a lot more strict than medical, at least for now. So I usually like, if it's recreational compliant, it's definitely going to be medical compliant. But this has definitely been the newest thing that we've evolved to, is the recreational packaging, because we've taken on quite a few new recreational clients. But yeah, it like can't go out the door with these compliancy standards not being on there, which is like you have to have your LLC, you have to have what it is, how many grams or the net weight, you have to have lab tested on there, you have to have the contains THC, and then the disclaimer, and then you can't have the word. Actually, the funniest thing with both medical and recreational is the word candy.
You can't put candy?
Cannot put the word candy on anything.
Wow.
Which kind of is like a curveball in the edibles market.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, how do we like describe this product now? Like we can't say it's candy. But I mean, it gets you to be creative with what words you're using.
I never would have thought of something like that. And you probably have to be careful with your imaging, what you can put on there as far, you said no animals?
Yeah, you're not supposed to have animals.
Anything that a kid might look and think is some sort of candy or treat.
Yeah, but it's like, honestly, it's kind of stupid. Like, I think the law is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I get not appealing to kids, but like if you have a bear on your packaging, like, and it has like contains THC right there, and you're hiding it from your kids, like you can have a bear on a beer bottle.
Right.
Like, and what are they gonna do with this? Eat it?
Yeah.
Like if they're seeing flour out
Right,
and
right.
it's already in a child safe container.
Tamper evident.
Yeah. And
Yep.
it's like at the same time too, if the bear's done in a different style, like if it's done up in like this Motivate Me
Like
logo
an adult
style,
style or something.
like why should that matter?
Right.
Like that's gonna be like almost more adult than some of the other logos that you'd see or some of the other packaging that you'd see. So I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. I mean, I always try to stick with all of the rules. It doesn't mean I agree with all of
Right.
them. I think that it's getting worse for both sides of the industry in terms of regulations constantly.
I never knew that. I didn't know that they wouldn't let you say certain things, or I didn't know they kind of steered away from images. So
Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of people don't. I try to stay up with it all. I mean, I've worked with over 150 clients in this industry, so I kind of have to.
150?
Yeah.
Damn. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is kind of crazy. I didn't know it either until like last year because I have a server with all of my clients in it. And I looked at all the clients I worked with last year and it was like 100. And I was like, holy crap. So I started counting them up and I was like, wow, I'm like at a good amount of cannabis clients that I worked with.
That's very cool. Good for you.
Yeah. It's definitely
So let's say I want to start a graphic design company. I'm going to start packaging cannabis, marijuana packages, jars, containers. And I'm going to do it, I'm not your competitor. I'm doing it somewhere different. What do you recommend? What's your advice to someone else that is trying to do something like this or in the same industry or something similar to you? What's the best advice you could give someone starting out?
contracts. Invoicing software has been really great for me because I would say contracts and invoicing are my least favorite part of the job. I actually had a lawyer write my contracts because I work with a lot of cannabis companies, and if their packaging's not compliant, they can have to pay at like a $10,000 fine.
Wow.
So I don't want to be liable for that. Mostly because like I do try to keep it compliant, but I always say I'm not a lawyer. So like if you want to make sure it's compliant, run it by your lawyer.
So get the contracts.
So get the contracts. Contracts are definitely the biggest thing. Make sure those are written up. Make sure you're getting a deposit. I always do a 50% deposit. I feel like that's very fair. That way, if like the project doesn't go well, you guys are both happy. I have like the money for my employee that's been working on it. They haven't had to pay full price for it. And also like just having that money before you begin is very important because you don't want to be taken advantage of.
No.
And you don't want to put all of this time into something and then not be compensated because that's just not fair. And then I would say time management is the other really big one. Keep track of what you're working on. I use a lot of Google Calendars. Actually, for myself, I like writing things down. I have a little notebook that has like my list for the day, and then I actually break down like every minute of my day and what I'm doing. I think that's very important, at least for a guideline. So I try to do that every morning, and then if I miss something, I just move it to the next day. But lists are definitely like what keeps me organized.
Yeah, I bet you're busy with, the amount of people, what you got to do, the artwork. Mm-hmm. So contracts, the legalities of it, maybe hire a lawyer, get a lawyer, and then time management.
Yeah.
Know your time management.
And lists.
And lists.
Definitely lists.
Make lists.
Make a lot of lists.
Yeah.
And use notes. If you have Apple products, notes are my best friend. I probably have like 4,000 of them.
Wow. I believe it.
But like every client meeting, I just write it in my notes. And what's nice is it's on your phone, it's on your computer, it's on your iPad. So you have all your notes right there. So it's easy to send, like if you're on the go or if you're there, like, and you have someone working on something or refer back to. I don't know. Notes are great.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that myself. I doodle a lot. Sometimes they're not even organized, but they're just written down. Mm-hmm. As long as they're on paper, you know where they are. You see them, they remind you. But what would you say the coolest job you've done? What would you say the most exciting thing you've done so far has been, or biggest thing you've done The Oakhurst mural looked pretty big.
So I'd say honestly the most exciting moment I've had in my industry is I worked on Mean Girls on Broadway with Drew, and we went to the photo shoot at Milk Studios for their launch for it. And I met Tina Fey, which was really cool. But I got to see this like huge production photo shoot in New York for Mean Girls on Broadway, which ended up like I think kind of blowing up. And I saw it everywhere. So I think that was definitely like a highlight of my career. Just working for Drew in general was really great. I got to work on a lot of like huge projects with like historical societies, like the Oculus doing that exhibition with the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel. That was also a really cool project just because a lot of people in New York saw that and it was larger than life. Like it was really cool looking. I don't know if you know the Oculus building, but it looks like these giant like whale bones almost.
Okay.
And it's huge. And right in the center of it was that exhibition. And it was really neat because you could go up on the second floor and like look down on it. And it was just like really cool visually and huge.
So you've got some experience in the art scene, the drama scene, theater scene, New York. And I think it probably translates into your work too. You've probably used that into your work and taken it with you.
Definitely. I would say I learned a lot about like emotional branding is the biggest thing. And like, I mean, Broadway is really interesting. And honestly, Drew was my professor at Mecca. He was an adjunct professor and he was teaching a class about Broadway graphic design. And I was like, you know what? It would be really cool to work for this guy. So I was like, I'm just going to work really hard in this class and see what happens. So when everyone was submitting one poster, I was submitting like 3 to 5. And I was like trying to get in. Like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks into the class, he's like, hey, I need help with this 7 degrees of separation. This artist did this work, the graphic designer, I don't like what he's doing with it. Can you just like take a stab at it? I'll pay you for it. So I did that for him. We worked really well together. And I ended up working with him like 2 to 3 days a week for 4 years.
Okay.
And I still work with him here and there on Broadway projects. Actually, that's what forced me to start Vivid Design Studios, is because during COVID, I was still working for him 2 days a week. I had recently left my marketing job that I was doing the other 3 days a week to focus on my freelance practice. And then Broadway shut down. But cannabis started booming.
Yeah.
So I was getting all of these new clients, got a couple of like really big clients, and just like transitioned into doing my own work full time.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And that happened perfectly for you, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
What's emotional branding?
I would say it's like you're trying to create something that evokes emotion or tells a story. You see it a lot in the Broadway graphic design because like you're trying to tell that story in one piece of art. And then that's getting translated into like all of these different things to try to get people to go to that show. But you're thinking of how to create this story with this one piece of art that can then get moved into all of these other things from it. I would say the coolest one I worked on was The Outsiders.
That's cool.
Actually.
So you were designing like posters for the shows?
So we were art directing agencies in New York, but we were designing the key art. So basically it's like the poster for the show. It's what is the format? I think it's 14 by 22 is the format. It's kind of an interesting size, but it's like the Broadway poster size.
Okay.
But we'd create this art and then we'd give it to agencies or we'd compete with other agencies, which I thought was really fun because I'm a very competitive person. So we're like creating this art and like kind of competing, but like working with these other agencies in New York. And we're all creating this really cool stuff and like bouncing ideas off of each other and then seeing what the client likes. And then as they're creating collateral, it'll be sent to us and we'll like give them advice on like how it can be done better, or like we'll redesign it a little bit and resend it to them. And it was just really fun.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a big part of your life and where you are today, doing that whole experience, being in New York, being on Broadway.
I wasn't in New York. I was right down the street.
Oh, you were? I thought you were in New York, or you were doing it for.
Yeah.
That's what's cool about graphic is you can do stuff without even really being there too.
Yeah. So Drew had an agency that he sold in New York, and that's why he was teaching at Mecca. And so that's how I met him there. But he was like, I don't want to stop doing this. So he hired me to help him like make his ideas come to life and like work with him. And we worked right down the street actually.
Wow. Do you do any now? Are you still doing it or?
So Merrily We Roll Along with Daniel Radcliffe in it is on Broadway right now. And I did that with him, I think in like September or October.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm still working with him on projects here and there. Not as much as I used to, but it's still cool to be part of it. And it's just like nice to still connect with him.
So if someone has an idea and they want to just get a package, they just contact you and you can design it for them. And I mean, they tell you what they want and then you go from there. Or if they have a mural they want, you come up with the idea essentially and then.
So it depends on the client and what they're looking for. They come to me usually like through email or DM on Instagram. I set up a brief with them. I get a sense of like how much of their thought they have like already mapped out. Some people are like, oh, I just have this name, or I don't even have this name. Like, can you help us come up with a name? And I'll factor that into their contract. And then if they don't have an idea, we'll do these mood boards where we grab a bunch of references on Pinterest and try to get a sense for what that client likes, as well as like try to find 3 different words for how they want their brand to be seen. And then use those to get a sense of what we can design from the client that they're going to really like be attached to. And like, because the logo is very, very important. It's like your brand, it's who you are, it's part of you. Like if you're running a company, that's tied to you. So I think that having a good logo that you really connect to is really important. And that's why I try to have a really collaborative process with people as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's important. I mean, especially with the marijuana industry. I mean, you don't want to just be blended in with all the other guys. You got to stand out. You got to be a little different.
I think any industry.
Any industry, yeah.
That you're running.
Yeah, any industry.
And then like packaging's pretty similar, but we never usually do one design unless like this person doesn't have a big budget and they know exactly what they want. We try to give a couple options, like everything that we do. That feel different from each other too, mostly with the logo. Like if someone's paying a good amount of money, we'll do like 5 to 10 completely different logos.
Really?
With, like different illustrations. It's funny because we have like all of these unused things that are still great that I've thought about like putting up on my website maybe and being like, oh, here's a logo that was never used. Purchase it or just see it.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah. So you'll give them options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to give options. And then kind of like if someone likes 2 options, we can combine the 2, or they'll give me things that they want changed about it, and then it'll just like evolve.
Right. Evolve. Back to evolve. Yeah.
Back to evolve.
Yeah. No, that's true. What are you guys doing now? What are you currently working on, or what's next for the Women's Cannabis Connection?
So we have an event coming up April 15th. It's our 3rd annual 420 event, the 420 celebration of women. It's doubled in size every year.
Wow.
Actually, funny enough, we looked at this space like 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
But we're ending up using the space that we used last year. But we try to create like networking events that are kind of more like party style or like a little bit more casual, where people can meet each other on a real basis as entrepreneurs or as people in the industry, versus like setting up a vending booth and being like, oh, here's my company, on to the next one. It's more like, oh no, I'm Hallie. I'm a designer. Nice to meet you. What do you do? And then like we do a field day. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words.
It's more hands-on. It's more personal. You're actually meeting the person. You're meeting them firsthand.
And we also do like games. So we did a field day last year that we're bringing back this year. And we're tying it in with a job fair. So we did a job fair 2 years ago. And that had a great turnout. I think there was about 450 people there. But it was outside and we had all of these different companies. And almost every company that was there, I've heard from, hired someone.
Good.
Which was really great. But the field day is really fun.
What kind of games you talking? What, like cornhole or like?
So we do like, do you remember field day in high school?
Yeah.
Like where you're playing tug of war
Yeah.
and relay races. So we set one of those up, but for different cannabis companies or different companies that wanted to be involved.
That's cool.
So you had all of these different companies competing with each other in like tug of war, watermelon eating.
Yeah.
And at the job fair, we actually did a wing eating contest, and I came in third.
Wow. That's impressive.
Because I had Hallie sitting next to me, who is the other, or my co-founder with Maine Women's Cannabis Connection. And we're very competitive, but it works out really well for us.
It's a good competitive.
It's a very good competitive. But she was sitting next to me, so I'm like, oh, she's beating me. So I'm like trying to eat them faster and eat them faster.
Funny.
And I ended up coming in third. I'm like, I don't know how this happened.
So it's not women's only. Can I go to this? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone's welcome to go.
Yeah.
We like to highlight women in the industry, but we're very inclusive of everybody.
Cool.
And it's fun to have everybody there.
Yeah.
Just to meet each other.
So there's an Instagram page, right?
Yes.
What is it? At Women's Cannabis Connection?
Yes.
Okay. And you guys are throwing events constantly?
Not
or groups?
constantly.
Okay.
We used to try to throw a lot of them, but we've realized it's more effective to use our time. We still meet every week. We've tried to make it every other week, but it ends up being every week because we get really busy. But we're doing, I think, 2, maybe 3 big events this year.
Okay.
Just so we can get like a good amount of people there and have the right amount of planning. We also collaborate with different companies. Like, I think we had 30 or 40 companies donate to the goodie bags at the last 420 event. It's just a lot of planning behind the scenes to do more than that.
Where's the event this year?
It's at Smith Farm in Falmouth.
Smith Farm in Falmouth, April 15th?
Yes.
Okay. What time?
5 to 8 p.m.
5 to 8 p.m.
And then there's an after party.
Okay. I'm going to probably go to this. This sounds fun.
You should go.
Is there like ticket entry or sales or?
Yep, there's ticket entry. It's right on our Instagram page. I can send you a link.
Yeah.
And you buy your ticket right there. It comes with a goodie bag.
What's in the goodie bag?
A lot of
goodies. A lot of
goodies.
That's cool. I'm sure.
Honestly, they're very. A lot of people come for the goodie
Yeah,
bags.
I bet.
Let's just say that.
Most people do. Most people go to parties for the goodie bags, but
Yeah.
and the people. It's meeting the people. I'm sure people network. I mean,
yeah.
they're having a good time. So that's really cool that you're a part of that. And now that you bring it up, I get it. There isn't a lot of women being highlighted, and there isn't a lot of women being in the spotlight in that industry. So I think it's a great idea, and it sounds like it's growing.
Yeah.
So
it is. And we just put a couple more people in place, actually. We have a new event planner who actually used to be one of the founders, but she's very structured, and she was always good at the event planning, so she's coming back on. And then we have a social media manager who's been great. And we're really just trying to like grow the brand right now, as well as like throw these really awesome events. We have some talk about a big like influencer event where we rent out a big house for the weekend, and every company has its own room in the house.
Oh,
and
man.
they can do what they want in
that
it.
sounds like a blast.
So that's kind of like something on the DL that we're talking about doing.
Okay. Very cool. So what's next? What is next and in your future? Are there any new goals? Any surprises up your sleeve? Projects in the works? You gonna hire someone else new for the studio? What's next for Hallie?
So next for me is getting help that's kind of like me. Like I'd really like to hire like an art director that can just help me like oversee my designer, as well as help me with some of the bigger projects, so I can really just work on client relations. And like my own brand. I honestly don't have much of a brand presence online. I think a lot of my work just comes word of mouth, which is great, even though I'd like to show my work more. So I'd say that's definitely something I want to focus on. As well as like long-term goals, I would have like 4 or 5 employees and have like a little studio, whether it's remote and we're all working online together, or it's an actual physical space. Even though I think that remote working is like really nice in this industry and important, I think it's important for people to have those days to work from home too.
It's probably cheaper too.
Yeah.
But instead of having a studio space or paying rent on a studio space, probably more efficient and lean for you to do that.
And honestly, I mean, this sounds goofy, but it saves me time.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet.
It's silly, but like that half hour in the car sometimes, that ends up being a lot of time if my days are really stretched thin.
Yeah.
And like if I have to do laundry, I can do it like while I'm working between
Yeah.
things. Yeah, I set timers a lot too.
Yep.
My
You
Apple
must have
Watch.
to. Miss Multitasker.
Yeah. ADHD.
Yeah. It's good. It's good ADHD. Good
ADHD.
perfectionism, good OCD, good everything. So, last question is questions itself. Are there any questions you have for your audience, for your clients? Any questions for me, the podcast? Any questions from anybody that's watching this that you'd like to ask? Do you have any questions at all, I guess?
I don't know.
How to better your business?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions about the podcast? Questions about anything, really?
Yeah, what's coming up in the podcast? Soon.
We've got a couple cool guests coming on. We've already got one here, which is nice, but we've got a couple more people coming on. I can't say who yet, but trying to grow it bigger, trying to get a wider range of guests, and guests hosts is another thing I'd like to do. Start bringing on people that I had as a guest as a host for an episode, which I think is a new thing that'll be pretty cool. But
like having another podcast come on to be with your podcast?
Like having you come on as a host with me for a dispensary. And
that would be cool.
I'd have your info and mine, and we can both question them together, having a guest host, and then just growing this more. Right now we're doing episodes every other week. I'd like to do it every week. It'd be cool to get enough guests where we're doing an episode every week and we're booked out for the month. But yeah, just trying to grow, trying to inspire people, trying to help people. Somebody's going to watch this, see your artwork. They might go to your page, hire you. They might realize, wow, I can do that too. You know, I'm an artist myself. I didn't realize I could do graphic design, or I could work with that industry.
Yeah.
So yeah. Trying to help
hit
people.
me up if you're looking for a job.
Yeah.
Who
So
knows? Send me your portfolio.
that's what we're going to get to. Yes. So where can we find you? We're going to get your plug. If someone wants to, use you for graphic design, get a logo, use you for packaging, get a mural, an illustration, what's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is my email, Hallie@vividstudiogallery.com. My phone number, this is definitely the quickest way to get a hold of me, is 207-239-5308. Instagram, I actually have 3 of them. I'm mostly on Hallie is High, which is Hallie, Hallie, period, IS, period, HIGH. And then I have Hallie is Art, which is HALLIE, period, IS, period, ART. And then I have at Vivid Design Studios. And then if you want to get involved with the Maine Women's Cannabis Connection, that's at Women's Cannabis Connection. And then the Maine Cannabis Chronicle is at Maine Cannabis Chronicle.
Damn. Very, very good.
Very thorough.
Very thorough. You didn't mess that up. And I really don't know how you sleep sometimes. It's like, do those ever get mixed? Are you ever like, you say the wrong name to someone, or you mix them together? Or is there a point where your paperwork's like, oh, whoops, that's the Cannabis Chronicle and this is my design? Or
actually, the Maine Cannabis Chronicle and the Maine Canagar, since they both have the Maine, I get them confused sometimes, just in terms of words. But I'm always kind of a little bit backwards with words too. I don't know if you caught me like trying to spell my Instagram handle for a second.
I was watching. I'm like, wow, she's nailing it down to the dot, the period. You got them all. So, but yeah, I wonder if you ever get like your clients confused or your names mixed up, or you just got a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on.
Yeah. You need a vacation or something. You ever take vacations?
I do, actually. I take quite a few vacations.
Okay. All right.
I try to balance it out. Sometimes I work on vacation, but...
Well, then that's not a vacation. You're working on... You're a go-getter.
You have to.
Yeah, you do.
Running a business.
I'm the same way. I'll take a vacation, and then I'll still take calls while I'm on vacation. And it's whatever, but
Like my last vacation, I was like, I'm only going to work 3 hours on this vacation. Yeah, I worked 10. And then I had my employee working every single day. So I try to take it. And I mean, I definitely had a lot of vacation time, but I'm just running a business and I'm busy. So I can't really step away for too long.
You're young. We're young. We both got to kind of put the work in, get it now while we can. Still trying to grow. So I get that. But you're definitely a busy girl doing a lot of stuff, which is cool. It's admirable too. I think a lot of people are going to see this and you know, be inspired by it too.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. You reached out early on, and as soon as I looked at all your pages, I was like, whoa, I got to have this girl on because she does a little bit of everything, and it's pretty cool what you're doing. And she brought some of the packaging, which is pretty cool. I'm sure some people have seen it, but yeah, I think it's cool that you brought this with you too.
Yeah. And it was funny because you had Northeast Wraps on.
Yes,
and
Chris.
I saw that post and I was like, oh, I illustrated the first picture in that post.
Yeah, that's a good point. On our first episode, Chris from Northeast Wraps wrapped a wall. Who was the company, or what was it? Hive?
It was Hive.
Okay, yeah. And you illustrated it and then he wrapped it. And I think that's a cool connection that just the guests we have already have kind of worked with each other or alongside each other. So
I think you'll find a lot of that in Maine too. It's very, I mean, you're from here too. You're from like the same town I'm from.
Yep.
It's a very tight knit community.
Yep.
I feel like I've always been a little bit in different communities. Like I was into skateboarding, snowboarding, like punk shows growing up where I met so many different people that I still know today that are all still in like the same industries in high school too. I have 2 friends that I went to high school with. Curator Co., who's now like a big photographer in the Maine cannabis market, and then Straight Chronic was one of my buddies from high school too. And it's just funny seeing people that you grew up with like now in the industry, or you're now working with them. Absolutely.
I have a few friends from high school that same thing. I've known them at a young age, and now they're doing their own thing. They got their own business, and it is a small state. It really is. And when we first talked on the phone, I didn't really know you. And then we started dropping names and locations, and it's like, oh yeah, I know you I've known you through friends. You know people that I know. So it's a small world.
Very small world.
But yes, thanks for coming on. We're going to have you come back maybe 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
See where you're at. See what you're doing new. Appreciate you giving out the knowledge, you know, telling our viewers a little bit about the industry and all that you do. Just want to thank the Maine Studio Works for using this location. This is a great spot. And thanks, Zach. And if you want to go to the event, April 15th, for the Maine Women's Cannabis Connection 420 event, we're going to add a link that you can click. And can you get your tickets now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy tickets now. And definitely check it out. It sounds like a good time. Are they still doing the wing competition?
No, not at this event.
Okay. Well, they should do something similar to that because I'll be...
Yeah. I think at the field day this summer, we'll definitely do an eating competition because me and Haley like to compete.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll put a link in. Check out the link. And other than that, Motivate Me episode 4 out. I like your little clap.